young cowboy, he lives on the range. His horse and his cattle are his only companions. He works in the saddle and he sleeps in the canyons, waiting for summer, his pastures to change. And as the moon rises, he sits by his fire, thinking about women and glasses of beer, and closing his eyes as the dogies retire. He sings out a song which is soft but it's clear, as if maybe someone could hear. Good night, you moonlight ladies, rock-a-bye, sweet baby Jane. Deep greens and blues are the colors I choose. Won't you let me go down in my dreams and rock-a-bye, sweet baby James. Now the 1st of December was covered with snow, so was the turnpike from Stockbridge to Boston. Lord, the Berkshires seemed dreamlike on account of that frosting, with 10 miles behind me and 10,000 more to go. There's a song that they sing when they take to the highway, a song that they sing when they take to the sea, a song that they sing of their home in the sky. Maybe you can believe it if it helps you to sleep, but singing works just fine for me. So good night, you moonlight ladies, rock-a-bye, sweet baby Jane. Deep greens and blues are the colors I choose. Won't you let me go down in my dreams and rock-a-bye, sweet baby Jane.
I've been traveling, flying on south again. How could it be? It seems as though a moment ago was reaping the seeds that I sowed. Now morning blows quickly through, afternoon follows suit. How am I to get these things done? Well, time stays when counted by days, illuminating ominous shade. Well, worry been breaking and bringing me down, and counting all the times that I fall. When my time comes, I won't be counting it all. I feel all my filth when I look in your eyes, but it falls light as a feather on my back in the night. Man, you said meet me there. How do I get from here to where I belong? It ain't just like finding a sign to get home. It's building your house on the stone. counting all the times that I fall. When my time comes, I won't be counting it all. I feel all my filth when I look in your eyes, but it falls light as a feather on my back in the night. Your house, it will cover you, but the rain still falls outside. Your light, it don't shine 'cause it's hidden under a bed. Why do you hide under a bed?
If you all have a song sheet, or the reading sheet there from Psalm 16. The Lord, come to my assistance.
Lord, I take help me.
Preserve me, O God, for in thee I take refuge.
I say to the Lord, thou art my Lord. I have no good apart from thee.
As for the saints in the land, they are the noble, in whom is all my joy.
Those who choose under God multiply their sorrows. Their libations of blood I will not pour out, or take their names upon my lips.
The Lord is my chosen portion, and my cup, you hold my love.
The lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Yea, I have goodly heritage.
I believe the Lord gives me counsel, and the night also my heart instructs me.
I keep the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand. I shall not be moved.
Therefore, my heart is glad, and my soul rejoices. My body also dwells secure.
For you do not give me up to Sheol, or let the godly ones see the pit.
You show me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. In your right hand are pleasures forevermore.
Glory be to the Father, to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
Reading from the first letter to the Thessalonians. But we would not have you ignorant, brethren, concerning those who are asleep, that you may not grieve as others do who have no hope. For since we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so, through Jesus, God will bring with him those who have fallen asleep. For this we declare to you by the word of the Lord, that we who are alive, who are left until the coming of the Lord, shall not precede those who have fallen asleep. For the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a cry of command, with the archangel's call, and with the sound of the trumpet of God. And the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we, who are alive, who are left, shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. And so we shall always be with the Lord. Therefore, comfort one another with these words.
The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?
When the wicked against me devour me, it is my enemies and my foes who will stumble and fall.
Although my army besiege me, my heart will not fear. No war break out against me. Even then I will be confident.
One thing I ask for the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek Him in His temple.
For in the day of trouble He will keep me safe in His dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of His sacred tent and set me high upon a rock.
Then my head will be exalted above the enemies who surround me. At His sacred tent I will sacrifice with shouts of joy. I will sing and make music to the Lord.
Hear my voice when I call, Lord. Be merciful to me and answer me.
My heart says of you, seek His face. Your face, Lord, I seek.
Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You have been my helper. Do not reject me or forsake me, God my Savior.
Though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me.
Teach me your way, Lord. Lead me in a straight path because of my oppressors.
Do not turn me over to the desire of my foes, for false witnesses rise up against me, spouting malicious accusations.
I remain confident of this. I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living.
Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage. Yea, wait for the Lord. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
Behold, I tell you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised imperishable, and we shall be changed. For this perishable body must put on the imperishable, and this mortal body must put on immortality. When the perishable puts on the imperishable, and the mortal puts on immortality, then shall come to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is your victory? O death, where is your sting? The sting of death is sin, and the power of sin is the law. But thanks be to God, who gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ.
Rachel.
Sunset and evening star, and one clear call for me, and may there be no moaning of the bar when I put out to sea, but such a tide as moving seems asleep, too full for sound and foam, when that which drew from out the boundless deep turns again home. twilight, and evening bell. And after that, the dark. And may there be no sadness of farewell when I embark. For though from out are born of time and place, the flood may bear me far. I hope to see my pilot face to face when I have crossed the bar.
At this time, there will be an opportunity for individuals to share. There's a number of you here, so we appreciate it if you would kind of hold it down a little bit. I'm sure there's a lot of folks who want to say a word. Well, 2/3 of the way finished, and then this will definitely help. Is it on? It's for the video. Oh, okay. So those that would like to say a few words, if you want to come up over here, would be great. Just get a little bit of a line going. And one of the things that really came to mind for me in reviewing this and knowing this family as well as I do and how much I love them. And I talked to Geoff about this, and I understand he also has a love for it. And it's that song that is familiar to all of us, I Can Only Imagine. And I wrote it down because I'm afraid I would just lose it in the middle. I can only imagine Heather is greeted by her guardian angel who takes her to our Mother Mary and her Son, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I can only imagine. Standing nearby her family who preceded her in City of the Lord's heavenly branch. I can only imagine. The mic is open now for anybody that would like to share.
My name is Claire Darnell, and I'm a friend from Michigan. I've had the privilege of getting to know a number of the Shells in different capacities, but Heather was the first Shell that I met. And I met Heather at a Christian girls' camp in Michigan. And while I don't remember much of the conversation, I do remember the feeling of, I like this girl, and she's very kind. I liked her so much that I thought it worthy of taking a picture with one of my disposable cameras, and a picture that I still have today. After our first encounter at this camp, Heather and I lost touch until she moved back to Michigan. And initially, our friendship developed and grew first from Theresa and Lizzie, but then quickly it became our own. From ladies' whiskey nights to dinner parties, backyard volleyball, Harry Potter movie marathons, dance parties, and coloring sessions, we shared a lot of life together. There were certain things that stood out to me about these events. I remember feeling a bit gross after watching hours of Harry Potter, but I was still glad I did it because of the company I was with. I remember being awed at the way Heather's hips moved in our dance parties, thinking they seemed to be a separate entity. Of course, how could I forget the gritty competition of backyard volleyball, where on one occasion, Heather, Lizzie, Theresa, and Mike all played on one team and properly destroyed me and my team. I'd like to think it was because the net was lower than regulation. All of these events helped foster friendship with Heather. But it was in between conversations about life and all its many facets that revealed the heart of Heather Shell. What struck me about Heather was she never demanded the spotlight. She could have easily gained her audience's attention if ever asked, but it wasn't in her nature to seek the spotlight. For Heather was beautiful, extraordinarily intelligent, classy, stylish, kind, thoughtful, well-traveled, and compassionate. Heather had a heart for justice and the marginalized. She had a feisty spirit that was quick to side with the underdog. However, as soon as she sensed someone in pain, her defenses would come down and she'd offer her real heartfelt compassion. Once when I was having a bad day, I broke down crying over something trivial and not important, and Heather rubbed my back and heard me vent, despite her being in the middle of her cancer treatment and battling much more than the mundane. I'm grateful for Heather and that I got to know her as a dear friend. Heather once told me that she would love to start an orphanage for girls so she could braid their hair and offer them a real home. I have no doubt in my mind that Heather is braiding little girls' hair who have gone home too soon. Heather is giving glory to God, and I hope I can use her life as an example to do the same. Thank you.
John Sauter, also from Ann Arbor. The Shells are a very dear family to us. Geoff was best man at my wedding, I his, and Heather is our goddaughter. God's blessed us with 4 wonderful sons, but no daughters. And Heather really was like the daughter that we never had to us. She grew up here mostly in Tempe, but we really got to know her we had fortunate to be able to come down here a lot to visit. And of course, she eventually ended up coming to Michigan as well. And so she made us really feel like we were her parents in Ann Arbor. And that was very special to us. Her first exposure to our family was a little unusual or funny for her. I think that if you've ever had a meal with the Shells, you will know that there is never a lack of conversation. And so with 4 boys at the table, and teenage boys at that, when Heather came up to visit for going to the camp that Claire was talking about, she sat down at our table, and the conversation went something like, so Steve, how was your day? Fine. Anything interesting happen? Nah. Paul, how was your day? Okay. So she was literally shocked. It was sort of like, there was nobody talking. But she is such a delight. Her middle name is Joy, and Heather really lived that name, and she brought joy to everyone that she met.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Rachel Klauser, but probably better known by my maiden name, which is Nebelsberger. I grew up going to grade school and high school with the Shell girls, but it wasn't until high school that I formed a really strong and lasting friendship with Theresa. And it was through Theresa that I quickly came to know the other Shell sisters, especially Heather. Only being a year older than us, Heather was on our sports team and grew to be a part of our circle of friends. When I reflect on our time spent together, they can be summarized by 3 simple words: joy, laughter, and sincerity. My memories of Heather span a wide range of activities, everything from our made-up band with the very catchy name of Sensitive Fruit, to our secret club that included late-night rooftop ceremonies and pool-time games. There were tea parties with big hats and dinner parties with fancy dresses. There were late nights of baking and carpools to and from sports games. The carpool was definitely one of the places that helped deepen our bond of friendship. The relationship grew not only among us as friends, but between our families. So much so that I would refer to Mrs. Shell as Mama Shell, and the other Shell girls would call my mom Mama Nebs. I remember, too, so many joy and laughter-filled times during sports practices. One basketball practice, as I wrestled another girl for a jump ball, instead of diving in aggressively, Heather politely tapped my shoulder and proclaimed, "Stop that, you!" This was said in the most perfectly Heather way, very polite and matter of fact. We also had our early morning weightlifting days where we would ride our bikes to school, so early in the morning we would catch the rising sun. And on our way home, we would choreograph synchronized bike riding, quite the spectacle, or play bike games and race one another, powering up over each painted bike arrow in the bike lane, video game style. These memories are only a snippet of our friendship, and they bring me so much joy to recount. The laughter and friendship we shared was a true gift. It was and is also a gift to be brought into the circle of the Shell family, to witness the deep and close bonds they share with one another. I know these times are hard, but I know the strength of your family's love. Heather was blessed by your unconditional love, and I know she's in heaven now, maybe practicing her synchronized biking. Definitely resting in comfort and peace and smiling down on us.
My name is Janelle Van Brunt. We're friends of the Shells, 2 houses down from them. This morning when I woke up, for some reason, I know it had to be the Holy Spirit, but the first thing that came to my mind was a poem from the book Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I went downstairs, found it on my computer, and printed it up. The Shell girls always reminded me of the March family. And Brian, where are you, Brian? Brian, you're a bonus. This is bonus Brian here. But the 4 Shell girls always reminded me of the March family. So if any of you gentlemen haven't read Little Women, you probably should. It's an American classic. Most of the girls of my generation read Little Women, and I read it several times, and I actually memorized part of this poem, which Joe wrote for Beth when Beth was dying. And I'm going to read the poem to you and just give it to the Shells, because it really reflects how beautiful the Shell family is and was, and how beautifully they were with Heather. So this is Jo writing to her sister just before her sister passed away. And Jo is the aspiring poet. Sitting patient in the shadow till the blessed light shall come, a serene and saintly presence sanctifies our troubled home. Earthly joys and hopes and sorrows break like ripples on the strand of the deep and solemn river where her willing feet now stand. O my sister, passing from me out of human care and strife, Leave me as a gift those virtues which have beautified thy life. Dear, bequeath me that great patience which has power to sustain a cheerful, uncomplaining spirit in its prison house of pain. Give me, for I need it sorely, of that courage wise and sweet, which has made the path of duty green beneath your willing feet. Give me that unselfish nature that with charity divine can pardon wrong for love's dear sake. Meek heart, forgive me mine. Thus our parting daily loseth something of its bitter pain. And while learning this hard lesson, my great loss becomes my gain. For the touch of grief will render my wild nature more serene. Give to life new aspirations, a new trust in the unseen. Henceforth, safe across the river, I shall see forevermore a beloved household spirit waiting for me on the shore. Hope and faith born of my sorrow, guardian angels shall become, and the sister gone before me by their hands shall lead me home.
Anyone else? We know, oh, come on. Yours?
I usually don't need a microphone, but perhaps today I do. I'm a close friend. Actually, I'm a member of the Shell family. I call them my sisters. Well, Sandy's my sister. Everyone else is my sibling. And I have thoroughly enjoyed my relationship with the Shell family, even though I'm much older than all of them. And I would like to just share the one time, a time that I had with the family when Theresa and Mike got married. And Heather was in charge of the favor. And I happened to be in Michigan. I went there for the wedding. Actually, I also went for Patty and Vince's wedding, which was the week before. So it was a great couple of weeks. But I did not know how busy I was going to get. Heather decided that it's a tradition in the Shell family to use crackers during the holiday. And in case you don't know what they are, I brought a visual aid. So this is what they look like when you buy them from the store. But Heather thought she should make them. Actually, she thought we should make them. And when she said that we were going to make these, I was staying at Sue and Greg Stout's house. And we were using their dining room. And she said, well, we're going to make these. And I said, oh. And how many? I don't remember how large your wedding was, but it was quite large. And these were not easy to make because Heather was very specific as to what we had to do. She had the skeleton cut out and had purchased all the innards. But it took forever to make them because you had to hold them together while the glue dried. You had to do the same with the snappers. So Heather and Jessica and Sandy and I worked 4 or 5 hours one afternoon at the Stout dining room table. And then the next day, the girls all go off for a day together. And I'm sitting at the house looking at how many have to be done. And there were a bunch. And I'm beginning to think this wedding is too large. So I sat there all day making these things. Sue was at work. Greg was mowing that beautiful Michigan lawn. And even that evening, Sue and I were watching TV, and she said, well, how many are left? Because I'm making them. And so she grabbed some and started helping. So what I loved about that time with Heather, though, is this was her way to show her sister how much she loved her. And it was a work to help her celebrate her wedding. And I just loved being with her. And, I only found out recently that her middle name was Joy. And she lived up to that name in spades. And I did say something to her then. In fact, I told her she owed me one. And but I said to her, this was time consuming. And I want you to make one for everyone at my funeral. And she laughed. And the tables have turned. I only have one. So I don't have one for all of you. But this is for Heather, and inside of this is all that love and joy that she did for her sister, and the love and joy that she represents. And I love this family very much, and I will be here forever with you. There you go. Oh, so sorry. Natural habit.
Bart, were you coming up? Are you going to play that? I don't think you'll need this.
Yeah.
You'll need it. This is for the live streaming. So.
Let's put it on the mic stand.
Think so?
So my name is Bart Tesoriero, and I'm a friend of Geoff and his family. I met Geoff through Christians in Commerce, and he taught me how to play The Days of Elijah and many other songs. So we played together a number of weekends. Our family only visited the Shells once, and that was when everyone was very small. I'm sure Heather was in the group, but I don't remember her from then. So when I read the obituary, and it said, "Feel free to share remembrance of Heather," well, I said, "Well, I don't really have any." But yesterday, our little granddaughter Carmela, who's only 2, was playing by the front door, and the door was open. And the beautiful sunlight was streaming in, and something said, "Why don't you play this song?" I said, "Oh no, that's got to be. It can't be the Lord, It can't be me. It can't be the Lord, But then I thought more about it. I thought, yeah, this is right. So I'm going to play the song, and when I saw Heather's face, her face is so beautiful, and I just sensed this, and so I just want to offer this song for her. Sunshine on my shoulders makes me happy. Sunshine in my eyes can make me cry. Sunshine on the water looks so lovely. Sunshine almost always makes me high. If I had a day that I could give you, I'd give to you a day just like today. If I had a song that I could sing for you, I'd sing a song to make you feel this way. Sunshine on my shoulder, sing it if you like, makes me happy. Sunshine in my eyes can make me cry. Sunshine on the water looks so lovely. Sunshine almost always makes me high. If I had a tale that I could tell you,
Hi. I've had so many wonderful memories with Heather, and I just wanted to share one. We went to grade school together, and after school, I was not always allowed to do whatever I wanted, but occasionally, actually a lot of times, me and Heather would walk home, and she would always say, oh, and we would just be talking and chatting, and the way Heather does, oh, my love. And I was like, well, I didn't tell my mom that I was gonna come over, and she's like, oh, it's okay. I'm like, she's like, just tell her you'll walk me to the corner. I was like, okay. So I would walk her to the corner, and then we would hang out there, and then we'd talk a little while, and we'd be talking a long while, and then she's like, oh, just come on inside. So we'd come inside, and she's like, you still just walked me to the corner, because we'd be at the corner at the counter. And she's like, you're here, you might as well eat something. So then she would give me some milk and some other delicious sweet that somebody made. And then we'd still be chatting, and then she's like, oh, look what show's on. So then we'd go sit down and watch a show, and she's like, as long as you're sitting in the corner. You still just walked me to the corner. So I would walk her to the corner very often. And I was just wonderful memories, so many of them, and I'm looking forward to meeting her on the corner where she's at.
The next, yes, ma'am. When we're finished here, the mic's going to be open to the family, so whoever, get prepared.
This is very difficult for me, and I'm not a shell. So I can only imagine how heavy your hearts must be right now. I grew up with Heather in the neighborhood. We were in girls group together. We went to school together. We were playmates. And the Lord has his reasons. I certainly don't know why he would depart from this world, such a beautiful creature. Heather was all things lovely and joyous and beautiful and poetic and creative and just inclusive and a lover of all things beautiful. The evening of her passing, Becca Castellanos and I got together, and we drank wine and ate chocolate and binged on period pieces. All the while knowing that Heather would deeply approve.
Any member of the family? You want to watch? Okay, good. Yeah.
The Shells are a good family, but we're blessed because we're part of a very large, excellent family. The night that we were told that there was no more treatment that we could use, and that basically Heather was going to be dead soon. the cousins all rallied to put together a video expressing their love for Heather. If you can watch this video with a dry eye, you've got wet wood. Can you, Troy, could you play the video?
Hi Heather, it's Leslie, talking to you from England. I'll never forget the day a few years ago when you and Uncle Geoff and Auntie Andy came and visited us in Macclesfield. We had the best day ever with you guys. We went for afternoon tea in that little tea shop. We walked around the cobblestone streets, and then we went back to our little house and we had Prosecco. And you laughed and you said that you felt like a barefoot Contessa being all jacketed in Prosecco and pride. That made me laugh too. We talked about art, we talked about family and life, and you are such a bright shining star, Heather Joy. You're a bright shining star, my cousin, sending lots and lots and lots and lots of love.
Hi Heather, it's Matt, Jackie, Lauren, and David. Jackie had a story she wants to share.
I was listening to a CD earlier today called Hungry for God, and the deacon shared a story about how he was asked to go to a baptism to baptize a baby who was very sick. And when he went to the baptism, he asked each of the parents and all the loved ones around the child to make the sign of the cross on the child. And as they did so, they said, "I love you." And we wanted to tell you that we love you.
Do the same thing. Love you, Heather.
We love you, Heather.
We love you, Heather. Love you, Heather.
And God loves you too, Heather.
Hey Heather and all you shells out there. We just wanted to say that we're thinking of you and we love you and we're praying for you. And Heather, you are an inspiration to all of us. And this big picture of you at our wedding up on our wall. And I just want to say what an inspiration you are.
I was up late last night reading Max, and I was thinking of Heather. And I went and I face stalked Heather on Facebook, and I saw some amazing pictures of your bright eyes and your exuberant face in Glasgow. And the world is so beautiful because of you. And I am moved beyond light and God and life, just thinking about you and your strength.
Everybody say, we love you, Heather!
Hi, Heather. It's Marina, your cousin. Just wanted to send you a message, let you know that we love you and we're thinking about you and praying for you. Also, Uncle Geoff, Aunt Sandy, Jessica, Brian, Theresa, Lizzie. Just wanted to let you know that you are all in our thoughts and our prayers. Love you guys.
Hi, Heather and family. You know, when we first heard that you were coming out here, we were thinking, what did we do to deserve another shell girl coming into our lives? It was awesome. For so many years when you got to live in Arizona away from us. You know. And I know that you guys probably all think of that time in Michigan with a tear in your eye. But I'm so thankful we had it because it gave us a chance to, gave me a chance to get to know you as adults. Get to see the kind, quiet, reserved, but really thoughtful, generous, loving person that you are. And I'm just really thankful for it. And if I can say any more, I think the tears are going to start to flow. Love you, and we'll miss you so much.
Hi, Heather. One of my favorite memories of your time here in Michigan was when we all went to the DIA to see the Oscar shorts, and we saw the short film that was animated, really graphic, and when it ended, we looked over and everybody had the same look on their face, which was kind of like, what did we just watch? And it was pretty funny because we were all thinking the same thing. And it was such a fun evening. You and your sisters always brought so much joy whenever you came to see us. And I'm really happy that our boys got to meet you too. I love you very much.
You were right, Geoff.
As the bonus in the family, I missed out on a lot of the girls stuff. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Heather was probably the sister I teased the least. We'll see if the sisters corroborate. But I think that's because she was kind of a quintessential middle child. Just very easygoing and easy to get along with. I wrote down a few thoughts, a couple random memories, a few things that are dear to me I'm going to share somewhat incoherently. It's true, Heather was the only sister who enjoyed whiskey, which I enjoyed enjoying with her. There's a strange kind of situation you get in after someone dies when you're going through their things and you feel like you're snooping on them, or like going through their journal as a kid, finding the little journal and opening it up or something. But there were some really beautiful things that I found when I was going through some of her things that I am so grateful that I snooped and found. I'm going to share a couple of those. Heather was our first child's godmother, Fitz's godmother, and she was a good one. She loved him a lot, and I went and was looking in her Google Docs, and I found a document called Books for Fitz, and she had a book for him that she was going to give him on his birthday every year till he was 20. Had everything from Make Way for Ducklings to Death Comes for the Archbishop. There's a little bit of space in between those two books, but that was the span of books. And I'm so glad I found that. And plan on trying to fulfill that wish for Fitz, giving him those books in Heather's name each year. Found another one, which I didn't read very far down because my name was the first one on it, which I was also happy about, which was called Text Messages to Keep. And there were just some random things that I had texted her over the years and I never thought were important to me, that she had snipped out and put in a Google Doc and taken the time to keep. Everything as stupid as quotes from animated movies to I can't wait to see you this weekend and hope you're doing well in Scotland kind of things. I was just happy to be the first one on the list of the people that she was keeping texts from. Oh, a quick note on the book list. Broke my heart to see that she had updated it as recently as 11 days ago. Knowing that she was thinking about him in her last days is something I'll keep forever. Heather used to curl up in the sun by a sliding glass door. That song about sunshine was really appropriate. She really hated dark, cloudy weather, and maybe that's the tear in her eye when she thinks about Michigan. But she loved the sun, and she used to curl up like a little cat. She liked cats. And she was kind of like a cat. She would curl up in the sun at the sliding glass door. The sun would come in the afternoon, and she would read a book. She really was probably the bookiest. And I think that one of the things that was part of her that was always special is just how much she had an imagination. I think that's why she liked reading books. She liked going into another world and entering into that, sometimes maybe as an escape during her last year. But she would just use her imagination, and I think that's why she loved the Harry Potter stuff so much and just loved that whole world and getting into it. That's kind of part of why the last words that she really said to me were so special. She had a few days before she passed away when she was fairly lucid, coming in and out. And when she would come in, she would open her eyes, she'd say, "Hi." And she would just have this sweet look of like, "I didn't know you were here. I may have seen you a minute or two ago," but it's like she woke up and, "Oh, hi, you're here." And she just started complimenting everybody those days. She would come in and we'd be leaving and she'd say, "I think you're the best," or "I think you're great." And but that sounds like how I would compliment somebody. That's not how she said it. And so to me, she said, and I wrote these down, she said, very kind of loopy sounding. So imagine somebody kind of sounding loopy as they say this. But she said, as I was leaving, that I was beautiful, bright, imaginative, and wonderful. I think that's the kind of compliment Heather would give. You know, I would say you're great, really appreciate you, you're swell. She would come up with 4 different 3+ syllable adjectives that she feels articulate what you are to her. And I don't think I'm as imaginative as she was, but gosh, I'm grateful that she said that about me. I had a few other things to share, but I think I'll stop at that and just say how much I miss Heather. Somebody else shared a story that I didn't remember. I will end with this, I guess. Someone else shared a story in one of the many places that people have been sharing memories, and said they remembered being in our house sometime and seeing us on the stairs, me and Heather. And apparently I had my arm around her and we were just sitting there. And I didn't even remember that, but they did. Somebody did. And I just like to think of that image with me and Heather, and she was easy. You saw it a few times in the slideshow. She was just easy to put your arm around and just be close to, and she was really cool with that. Didn't expect a lot. Just sit with her. So as we say goodbye this week, just have those sweet memories of her, and always treasure those, and hope heaven's even better than she imagined.
It was kind of touch or go. It's still kind of touch or go about this. I don't know why I brought my pen up with me, but I'm Heather's Aunt Patty. That would be Sandy's sister, more commonly known as AP to anybody who is in the neighborhood and is around the age or has children around the age of any of the Shell children. When the day after Heather left us, I started thinking, we talked about doing family sharings, and I started thinking about it, and I thought about it, and I prayed about it, and I walked about it, and I really, really, really struggled. And it wasn't because I don't have memories to share, because I have more memories than I can count. I moved here when the kids were young. I moved literally into their homes and lives, and formed a reasonably good relationship with the kids and their parents. Actually, that's kind of a joke, because we actually have a really amazing relationship, and they are all my heart. But the reason why it was so challenging is, well, there's the obvious reason. I certainly don't want to be up here having to have to share about somebody I love so much. And then the second hardest part was I didn't know what to say. I mean, do I just share some memories? How do I do justice to who Heather was and will continue to be in our hearts? As it turns out, and Heather told me this herself, I was worrying for nothing, because really all of these beautiful sharings and things that everybody has said has already done that. Heather, I'm not even looking at my notes now. I don't need them. Heather was one of those kind of people who, if you knew her and you loved her, it was a special, unique, individual relationship between you and her. And listening to all these different stories, yes, laugh, and there are some fabulous memories. I will share a couple, just for the crack, as they would say, because I did write them down. And how they would say, just do it, AP. So growing up, well, I was already a grown-up, technically, but growing up with the Shell girls, there are so many memories that were either day-to-day or absolutely epic, or just kind of Heatherisms that just happened. Brian, so many people said things that I was going to say. The Little Woman reference, Janelle, hello, stole that page went. Okay, the whole cat thing, Brian, thank you very much. Yes, that was one of mine. That just goes to show, I mean, that's something that is obviously very significant, those things. Little Women is a very, very, very important book to the Shell girls, and that was very appropriate. But yes, she did love cats, and one cat in particular, and his name is Bingley. And you saw in the family portrait, Bingley is in there, held in Heather's arms. And we all loved Bing. So when some in-laws started to join the Shell family, some of them, goodness forbid, had cat allergies, which left quite a conundrum for the Shells, because, I mean, when they really want their new in-laws to be able to visit without being in agony, but it was Bing, after all. So Emma, one of those in-laws, hit on this fantastic idea when we were out on holiday one time. My husband and I came out for a visit, and she said, as a suggestion at first, why don't you take Bing, AP? And I said, oh, that's not a bad idea. I'll talk to my husband about it. I was newly married. I'm trying to do the right let's talk to the husband thing. And so at that moment, my husband walked out, and Emma says, Vince, what do you think about taking Bing home? I mean, I didn't even get a chance to talk to him. And he said, absolutely, sure, whatever. You know, he's very easygoing, my husband. And so we did take Bing home, which was one of the most stressful moments of my life. Just because Bing does not like flying. While I was, I came back for a visit not too long ago, about a month, I think, and spent some time with Heather. I came out with Lizzie, actually, which was a blessing. And one of the things Heather kept asking me for is, do you have any more pictures of Bing? No, Heather, we've gone through every picture I have on my phone. I could ask Vince to try to take a picture of Bing and send it, but I really knew that wasn't going to work very well. So when I went back to Michigan after that trip, I tried to do what Sandy had coined a while ago as the daily Bing. And so on WhatsApp, I would, send a picture of one of Bing's numerous adorable poses. Geoff would say that they all look the same, but they don't. They don't. Bing is at home now, and I know he's very sad because, as I told Heather, Bing told me that she was his favorite. No offense. No offense, Lizzie. That was just one example. Heather really was. She did have such an amazing sense of humor. The last reason that I really struggled with this was I wanted this to be an honoring I wanted to somehow capture Heather's essence in words, which is, the words are inadequate, really, to do that. So many memories. I could stand here for an hour. I mean, picnics and road trips and, yes, dance parties, even with AP, tea parties, even with AP. It seemed like there was an endless source of imagination and creativity in that house. I was incredibly blessed to be a part of this family. I will share one thing in particular, three, sorry. And they're quick. And one just stands out because Heather just recently brought that up to me. Lizzie and I had an overnight trip, not too far in advance before we actually ended up going out to Arizona. Where everybody has very busy lives, and it was a real treat for Lizzie and I to do a throwback to the girls' nights we used to do in Arizona often. I had Instagrammed the family, and how adorable we were and all this, et cetera, et cetera. And Heather made a comment to me like, oh, that brought back such great memories, especially the one where you introduced us in how to make a proper white Russian. And I'm sure we were all legal. I know we were all legal at the time. There are I'm sure there are several young women in here who were a part of the paddy wagon where technically we had more bodies than seating available, but we still always made it to our destination on time, which was often our Big Fat Greek restaurant, which was a traditional whenever all of us girls were in the state at the same time, which wasn't always an easy feat. We would usually celebrate. We had a tradition of going to our Big Fat Greek restaurant, and those were some really amazing dinners, not because of the food, although the food was good, but that's not what they were. I think the last two things, really, that I wanted to talk about is my very first memory of Heather. Actually, I'm going to save that. It's going to be the last one. There was a ring in my family. It was my... Sorry. It was my grandmother's ring. And I never met my grandmother. It was her engagement ring. She died when my mom was 5. it was my most prized and precious material possession that I owned for a lot of reasons. Obviously, we're a very sentimental family. But my grandmother's name was Sylvia, and I felt like I knew her well, and I loved her even though she died in 1934, which was well before I was born. Anyway, I had this ring, and the girls all knew about it, and they knew about Sylvia, and we'd tell stories. My mom mostly would tell the stories, and I would repeat them. And I loved this ring, and they knew it. And I always told the girls one of them would get it. Well, Heather asked first, and first come, first serve. And I don't know what exactly prompted me to give it to her when I did, but I gave it to her. I wrapped it up, and I put it in a nice box. Took it off my finger for the first time in I don't know how many years. And at Theresa's wedding, just before I took Heather aside, and I passed that on to her. And she was very grateful. I mean, it was a beautiful moment. And, you know, it suited her perfectly. I'm so glad I got to give it to her. I didn't wait until like, oh, you can have this when I die, or, you know. I mean, I don't know what prompted me to give it to her sooner, but I did, and I'm very, very grateful that that happened. The last memory is, it's quite sweet. I went to visit Sandy and Geoff when they first moved to Arizona with a friend. They were still living in Gilbert, so you were fairly recently in Arizona. And I don't remember a lot. There wasn't a lot of remarkable things that happened during that trip, really, until the very end. There were two memorable experiences from that trip. One involved another sister who was in the fireplace a lot, and the other one involved Heather. She, as we were getting ready to leave after this trip, my friend and I, Sandy had the three toddlers, three wee little poppets, and she was taking my friend and I to the airport, and this was pre-9/11. So we got into the airport, and we were saying goodbye, and we were late. It must be a family trait. And we were a bit late, but so we were kind of in a hurry, and all of a sudden these little arms wrapped around my legs, and I look down, and it's Heather, and she looks up at me, and she says, "I miss you already." I know. I've never forgotten that all these years later. And again, it's one of those throwback things because, again, on my last visit, when I had to tell Heather, okay, she was doing really well. And I said, you know, I'm leaving tomorrow. I got to go. And, you know, there was some protestation. She didn't want me to go. She's like, oh. And then, you know, she's like, well, goodbye, come back soon. You know, I can't wait to see you again, and a few other things. But I reminded her of that memory. I said, do you remember when I said goodbye to you? I don't know how many years ago it was. I don't do math in my head. I reminded her of that. And then I said, then to her, before I even left, I miss you already. And that's it.
Hi, I'm Emma. I'm lucky enough to be Heather's sister by marriage. Very lucky. I'm not ready to talk about Heather tonight. Can't even sum up what she meant to me. But I wanted to talk to the family. This last year was really hard. And It was a lot of bad news, and the Shell family loved Heather so well. And from the moment her diagnosis last August, the Shell family was all in, and they just made this decision to be there for Heather at every step. And it was so amazing to witness from my perspective. It's not something that anyone is good at, walking through that, seeing your daughter become ill, and your sister, and but they did it well, and they leaned into it, and they didn't step away. And I just think it was such a beautiful witness. And I love you guys so much. And if you ever have to do anything that hard, the Shell family is who you'd want by your side.
This might be a bit dramatic. But I'm taking my prerogative. I had the privilege of living with Heather for 2.5 years, 2 of which were her last healthy ones, and the honor of walking closely with her through the first 8 months of her cancer. She was my person, and I hers, during hard, cold, gray years in Michigan, first in Hillsdale, then 6 years down the line in Ypsi. It was hard for either of us to picture either of us dating or married. Who could possibly be a fit for the complex, intelligent, fiery, strong-willed, well-rounded, and fascinating women that we were? We might have had that conversation more than once. Basically, the question always came down to the same unfair comparison. Who could get me and delight me and love me as well as the person I'm already with? It's an unkind bar to set for any man to be as good to me and for me as my dear sister. In one season of the perennial effort to put myself out there, I went out a few times with a guy in Michigan. It wasn't super promising. At one point, that's funny. At one point, Heather, who had tried while I gave it a shot not to be discouraging, at least not out loud, finally said, "I just don't think he inspires you." And that was our metric for someone who could earn a deep place in our magnificent hearts. Am I inspired by them? I can't think of a more inspiring person than my Heather. To no one else can I trace so many direct lines of interior change in my own self. No one else pushed me so far and deep in the work and gift of love as she. It may be that I have already found and said goodbye to the love of my life. So few will ever get the privilege in a lifetime of such an incredible love as I've gotten to have.
Lord, please help me to get through this. Since 2010, one of my traditions has been every Sunday morning, I have a journal for each one of my kids. And so I pray for them, ask for a scripture passage or some sense, some word, and write it down. I always kind of figured after I was 6 feet under, they'd pull them out. Dad thought that. What was he thinking? So, Heather's, yours finished a little early. You so fulfilled your name in every way. We've talked about joy, but your first name too, Heather, a flower that's not flashy, but exudes a quiet beauty all the time. A flower that can be used to form the most comfortable bed of all. And so also, you served so many others, bringing comfort, a soft touch, a support. Heather, a hardy flower in Scotland that takes firm root and endures much. Heather, you passed the test of life. You finished the race. In fact, you aced this test. You were always good at tests. You did well on this one. I'm proud of you. Heather, you fulfilled your trust. God gave you many gifts, intellectually, relationally, spiritually. You pursued intellectual excellence, and you achieved it. Art Nouveau? Who ever heard of Art Nouveau? I didn't even know it existed until she started studying it. But she had a passion, and she went after it. You wanted to travel. Going through what countries? Do they speak English there? But you did it. You wanted to go to Charleston. Charleston? Who do you know in Charleston? What are you going to do there? Where are you going to work? I don't know. But she did it. You wanted to inspire young minds. You lit the fire. You fulfilled your trust, Heather. You made a great return on the investment that the Lord put in you. Heather, life here for you was very temporary. Much more temporary than any of us wanted. But I know from what you said in the conversations we had that you knew where your lasting home was, not made by human hands. The home you have now, it's a permanent one, not a temporary one. And my prayer is that I can finish my race as well as you did. And I think if she were here, she'd extend that invitation to all of us here. Heather wants to see all of you again in heaven. She knew she'd make it because, as she told her mom, I know I'm covered by the blood. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of the pain. But I'm not afraid of what's going to happen afterwards. She made that decision. And I don't think there's any greater farewell gift that we could give to her than to make the same decision ourselves. Thank you, Heather, for leaving behind a shining example of a life well lived and an end we all aspire to. That's how I want to go. I thought to give my kids an example, but Heather, you beat me to it. I know in whom I believe, and I know in whom you believe. And I look forward to dancing before his throne with you. Amen.
Sorry, this is sharing part 2. It's only because I forgot, which is not uncommon for me. One of the things I really, really, really wanted to share and wrote down, which is why I should have read it, is the last day in the hospital, which God, in his infinite mercy, which still blows my mind, he allowed me to get there in time to spend some time with her where she knew me and said some pretty profound, amazing, life-changing things to me. Most of them had to do with love. She was teaching me, as she was wont to do, about bugs, if I complained about insects in the pool, or how important they are to the ecosystem, and things like that. Literature, something, a lot of things we shared love for. But what she taught me that day in the hospital was she was fully aware, we were going to hospice, she was fully aware that this was the end of her journey. And all she did that day was give. Nurses came in. Every nurse, I think, who cared for her had come in. Some left her gifts. She's wearing a necklace right now that one of the nurses had given her that spells out brave in Morse code. All the nurses came by they were crying, they were hugging her, they were telling her how much they loved her. How much Heather had changed their lives. She thanked them. Apparently, when they came in to scrub the floors, she would thank them. She thanked me for coming as if I had come from Mars. She was so grateful. That last day was all about giving for her, which really is who she was in her life. She gave, whether it was an enormous amount of joy through laughter or whatever the case may be, she was a giver. And that day impressed me like nothing has ever impressed me, to see how it was all about everybody else. And the one time when you would think somebody has a right to be a little bit selfish and perhaps want this or that, that is not what she did. She gave. And I just didn't want this to pass without really mentioning that, because it was really one of the most beautiful, again, life-changing things that I've ever experienced. And I agree. I don't know who said it. One of you, that we will meet again. Oh yeah, on the corner. You said you can't wait to see her on the corner, and I agree, Heather. Until we meet again, my sweet petal. That's it.
Well, this has been a wonderful evening, and I hope everybody had an opportunity to share what they needed to share with whoever they were visiting with the family. This is the conclusion tonight. Tomorrow there will be a mass at 9:30 on the next block at Our Lady of Mount Carmel. Thank you all for coming. I know the family was very blessed to have you all here this evening. Thank you. Safe trip. God bless you.
I'll just say one last word, which is if you'd like, there's a spot out back to write something down, and then the videographer said that if you'd like to leave a private eulogy or just a memory, he has a camera set up. If you'd like to do that in private as well, memory of Heather or anything like that, he'll be compiling something for us. And I think we have the place to leave, so feel free to come up and say bye to Heather if you didn't get a chance to before.
There is a young cowboy who lives on the range. His horse and his cattle are his only companions. He works in the saddle and he sleeps in the canyons, waiting for summer, his pastures to change. And as the moon rises, he sits by his fire, thinking about women and glasses of beer, and closing his eyes as the dogies retire. He sings out a song which is soft but it's clear, as if maybe someone could hear. Good night, you moonlight ladies, rock-a-bye, sweet baby Jane. Deep greens and blues are the colors I choose. Won't you let me go down in my dreams and rock-a-bye, sweet baby Jane?